You find bog bodies right across North Europe, through Britain and into Ireland.
"1965 was an exciting and prosperous time for a small village like Fawley. A new beginning was dawning with the building of a power station. Construction workers were in abundance, local retailers were savouring the demand for their wares, and residents in and around the area were enthusiastic in their newfound employment. The place was heaving with activity, the most it had seen in many years since the war. Unknown to many in the community, Fawley had been a hive of activity for thousands of years, dating right back to the Bronze Age and before. It was this quest for historic knowledge about the Fawley Power Station site that led me to speak to a professional archaeologist, Ron Brading.
I was in charge of the archaeological investigation at Badminstone, or Fawley Quarry as it's known now, from 1999 till 2005. The area of Badminstone Farm has been an attractive area for people since Neolithic times, at least we know. We found one sherd of Neolithic pottery which probably dates to about 7,000 years ago.
Really?
There's no other evidence of people, but if they dropped the pot then they were probably there.
Right.
The area has been occupied for at least 7,000 years. The greatest evidence we have for occupation in the area is from the Bronze Age, though there is quite a bit of evidence of prehistoric stuff in general, because you can't actually date every feature. We do have evidence of the Iron Age period and also of the Romano-British period. The actual quarry is situated on a gravel plateau.
Right.
But at the eastern end it also slopes down to Southampton Water, so it would be a very attractive place for Bronze Age farmers to live. The actual Bronze Age occupation, what we've found, is actually on the brow of the plateau, which is quite likely because it's close to all the areas. It's close to the flat area where you farm.
Yeah.
It's close to the wetter areas where where these seasonal burnt mound activities took place, and you're also close to Southampton Water where you get the salt and the fish and that.
Yeah. I took time out to take a look at the Badminstone Quarry myself to see where Ron was talking about and how close it was to Fawley Power Station.
This is where we're digging at the minute, or where we have been digging from, and this was where our last archaeological find was.
Right.
But a couple of months ago, there was a few dark patches around here. There was a sort of campfire, and I said there was like a fire, and then there was a little couple of deposits where people were sat. And the amount of archaeological stuff that you get to see little urns, you get to see little pots, you get to see a settlement next to a river. Found a horse led on its back, you know, with its hoofs up in the air. Obviously it's been buried because it had shoes on it.
Having visited the quarry and spoken to Gary Pritchley about the artefacts found there, I decided to speak to Keith Talbot, who, being a family friend, is also a key local historian. Keith also worked for many years at Fawley Power Station and has since been involved in the dating of some ancient Purbeck stones found at the local beach. He also found a recognised dinosaur footprint at the same local beauty spot. I felt could further my knowledge of the area's history.
So basically, we were down cleaning the beach up after a storm.
Right.
It was about 1992, I think it must have been, or somewhere around there. And there's all timber and all sorts, some of that, even that big timber up there, you know, that great big lumps were all washed out, everything was sort of washed out. And then I sort of had the jet washer out, I cleaned it off, cleaned the stone off, and I thought, well, I don't know, we joked about it being a footprint shape. Right. It was all green. We joked about this being, oh, perhaps it's a diner with the kids, and I was on the internet and I thought, well, I'll just take a photograph and sling a picture in, and of course it came out, it is.
Yeah.
So I sent the pictures off to Ian West at the university, because that was the geological site that I found, and he came down the same afternoon.
You did work at Fawley Power Station,
yeah,
didn't you?
yeah.
Could you tell us a little bit about that sort of thing, your time, sort of when you started? And
when I started?
Yeah.
You wouldn't want to know about it. No, What, there? No, I went there about 1974 when I went down there, and I had 17 years there.
But you never never heard anything about the bog bodies then, or anything?
I never heard anything down there. No.
No.
It's, nothing at all. I suppose I wouldn't have, you know, I wouldn't have heard anything there. I mean, when I heard about these was looking at the sites on there for this business, and found Ian West's sites. Then I looked at that, and obviously he's I think there's a bit more information that he's, you know, sort of hearsay stuff that he's put on there. But I can't find anything about it.
During the years that Keith had worked at Fawley Power Station, he had never heard of anything untoward happening during the digging of the foundations of the station, but he felt that if I contacted a professor called Ian West, that he may well have more contacts and information on the historical side of the construction of the site. The construction of the power station was watched earnestly by everyone, with the local residents discussing the imminent appearance of a 650-foot chimney dominating the skyline for tens of miles. They had seen chimneys before with the oil refinery close by, but this chimney was going to be far more prominent. The men laboured long hours digging out the foundations using excavators and, when necessary, by hand. It was hard going as the site was reclaimed marshland and gave the construction contractors many obstacles to overcome. Labourers worked alongside pilers and welders whilst installing cotter dams to secure the diggings. One welder working on the site, called Dennis Dunn, or Dickie as he was known, always remembered this period for different reasons than most. In the meantime, I called Professor Ian West on the phone, but unfortunately due to pre-organised commitments he was unable to see me. He did, however, put me in touch with a gentleman called Alan Murray, who he explained was the neighbour of the former welder, Dennis Dunn. Following a brief conversation with Alan, a meeting was arranged for me to meet with his neighbour, Mrs. Dunn, the widow of the construction welder, Dennis Dunn. I asked her about her late husband. How was he involved with the building of Fawley Power Station?
He was employed by the Taylor Woodrows, and I think it was Matthew Hall's contractors.
Right.
And he said that he'd worked at Fawley Power Station in 1965, and while they were working there, two bodies, as they were digging down, two bodies fell out of the wall. And could I find out anything about them? Because since then he'd heard absolutely nothing about them. So from then on, I went on the internet, and there was nothing on the internet about anything at all like it. There was plenty of information about bog bodies, but nothing at Fawley Power Station. So I then contacted Southampton's Advice Centre, and they put me on to Hampshire's Advice Centre, who put me on to a Dr. Russell, who passed me on to Ian West, Dr. Ian West, who's does geology at Southampton University, and he has an extremely good website. When he read what Dennis had told me, like me, he thought, well, you know, it seems quite a story, and we worked from there on, and slowly we checked and got information from a load of different places, but nothing which actually confirmed anything that Dennis had told us. So it was from there on, you know, we printed articles in the hope that somebody would give us information. The two bodies, as Dennis describes them, were about 4 foot in height, so were possibly children.
Oh, really?
Possibly.
Right.
Yeah, we're not,
Or small people.
you know, it is only because of the size.
Yeah.
But to Dennis at the time, he believed they were aliens.
Right.
Yeah, he called them little people.
Yeah, yeah, this is what they were described as. And according to Dennis, one of the people who was working on the site would not come back because he was so frightened of what he saw.
The exposure of two dead bodies caused a commotion. Some thought they looked alien in appearance simply because they were very small and didn't look like any human they'd seen before.
And of course, if you throw a body into a bog, it takes on the age of the bog as well, rather than the age of the body. Someone who actually murdered his wife She disappeared 20 years before he actually got caught, and they found her body in this bog, and they dated it, and it was dated to about 1,000 years old because it's soaked in. It's quite possible. Whether they did exist is another matter, but it is the sort of thing that Bronze Age people would have done.
There was a shout. Dennis turned round and saw what he thought to be two small alien bodies. He had a good look at them, and to him they were definitely bodies. They were told to stop work, and they stopped work, they went for a cup of tea, and while they were away, some people in white coats came. They saw them go away to look at the bodies, and they took photographs. Altogether, Dennis remembers it as being about half an hour that they were away, and then they were called back and told they could go back to work.
Right.
The bodies had gone by then. Photographs were taken of Dennis and the people who worked there. Dennis was told that they would be in the Echo that night. They looked in the Echo that night and there was no photographs or anything. He made inquiries when he went back to work the next day, and they were told that it was just tree trunks.
Right.
Dennis did not believe this at all and said to the foreman, "I wish I'd kept the finger." And the foreman said if he'd kept the finger he would have been sacked. He inquired at Fawley Church as to whether any bodies had been buried there, and he contacted Southampton Echo to see if they'd heard anything about it, and they had received no information whatsoever. And so from then on, Dennis left it alone. I've tried now, this is 5 years, so for 5 years I've been looking for someone else who would either say yes or no, and I have nobody who was there to say no. But, you know, again, everyone accepts that you know, you need proof for a story like that, and we just haven't got it.
Following this revelation, I felt I needed some clarification on this. Were their bodies found, and where were they now? This I felt could be solved if I spoke to the local historian group. As luck would have it, I was actually able to speak with the chairman of the Waterside Heritage Group, Graham Parks. If anyone knew the outcome of this mystery, then surely he would be able to help me.
You asked about bog bodies, a fascinating subject, a lot of myth attached to it. They do appear in general to be Iron Age in date, and that would include where they're found, the Roman period, but the Romans actually hadn't reached there, so it wasn't part of the Roman Empire. They appear to be deposited formally rather than just lost in the bogs, in the mires, in that sort of wetland environment. Now, whether it was criminals being passed on to the next life, or whether it was people who happily went to their death to appease the gods or to communicate with the gods, nobody knows. Nothing was written down at the time particularly, therefore we don't really know. The bodies reputedly found at the power station have entered the urban myth situation now, in that people know about them in general, but of course the details and specifics are unknown. Even in reality, whether or not it happened is very difficult. Certainly people talk knowledgeably about having seen what they say were bodies. The unfortunate thing is that in the records of the power station, in the records of those people who ought to have been informed if bodies were found, there is no evidence at all. So you have to ask, in fact, if they didn't inform the authorities, then in fact, was anything really found, or was it something which from a distance looked like bodies but was actually just interesting shaped pieces of wood or things like that? I don't know. All things are possible. I wasn't there. The interesting thing is that it would appear that they were found down quite a deep shaft, having excavated through various lenses of gravel, deposited material and other peat layers. Now that's in line with the natural geology of the area. There are certainly more than one layer of peat intermixed with the gravel. the further down you go, the earlier in time you go, the less I would have thought the probability of bodies being buried, because, as I said, they do tend to be Iron Age, and in geological terms, at the depth they were found, it was well before the Iron Age. I have an open mind. I'm prepared to believe that there were bodies. At the moment, though, I think the evidence is too weak and it looks a little bit unlikely. But if the photographs turned up and they were clear enough, yes, of course, I'd be delighted, because that would actually add something to our knowledge of the waterside.
Graham Parks said photographic evidence was definitely needed, so where better to go next but to Fawley Power Station itself and speak to the station manager, Nick Stockdale. Maybe he'd shed some light on the matter, and perhaps he's even seen the photographs himself.
It's an interesting bit of Fawley's history. Going back through the records in this area, I think the birth of the Anglo-Saxon race was seen to be here, so I guess people have been around here. And I'm well aware of the legacy or legend of the Bog Bodies, but as far as the CGB, which was the forerunner to RWE Empower that now own Fawley, can't find anything within our records that actually makes reference to the Bog Bodies. However, having said that, there is an awful lot on the local websites, and certainly going back through my understanding of the digging that was taking place, it was found, or purported to have been found, in an area of peat when they were digging the surge shaft. That is part of our cooling water outfall system, and reading through the records, it would appear that there was a considerable number of logs and tree stumps and various other pieces of wood that were found in that area. I think it's fair to say that all power stations have some kind of legend associated with them. I guess this is one of the more interesting stories that a power station has associated with it. Interestingly, we've done quite a bit of work with the local historical society, and actually the power station have been supporting them. That's the Waterside Heritage people. And I note that Graham Parks makes reference in there on one of the websites that I've looked at to this being some kind of myth that grew up with the power station.
Apparently there was a photograph taken of the workers with the bodies. Has there ever been an effort made to find the photograph at all?
We have looked through some of our records, and all power stations when they were built had a lot of records taken of the various stages of construction. Unfortunately, the power station itself in the late 90s was sort of scheduled for closure, and we had a lot of downsizing, and the records that we have got, we have looked through. There may well be other undiscovered records on site, and who knows, maybe this tale will have some substance behind it at some point when we find something else. But at this stage, I'm not aware of anything, and the company isn't.
Has there ever been any other media coverage of the story at all that you know of?
I'm not aware of anything, but I've only been here 3 years. But again, talking with people on site, know there's been coverage from, I think, this Southern Echo about 5 years ago ran something in the newspapers asking and appealing for anybody to come forward. And I gather at that stage, nothing happened. So I'm open to being made a believer. I think something will have undoubtedly have been found, but whether it's bog bodies or whether it was just petrified timbers in the peat layer, I guess we wait to find out.
So it's here that my search now ends, the very place that the mystery first started in 1965. I can't help but feel a little sad now my journey's over, as Mrs. Dunn and Mr. Alan Murray, it appears, are the only two people who still believe and have no reason to doubt what the late Mr. Dunn found back in 1965, the two bodies, that it was true. The whole situation I feel is quite frustrating, as findings in the local area of Fawley by archaeologists like Ron Brading suggest that there were Bronze Age and Iron Age settlements here, and the bog bodies that have already been found elsewhere have been documented to come from both of these periods. However, like all historical artefacts and events, there needs to be proper evidence to back them up that they actually happened or existed. Unfortunately, the bodies are gone now. They'll probably never turn up, nobody knows where they are. Even though Alan Murray keeps searching for them, it's quite unlikely that they'll be found. So it all rests on these photographs that were taken of the workers with the bodies. Again, the photographs of the workers with the bog bodies could be anywhere. They could be in a room like this one here. So, until they're found, the mystery of Dickie Dunn and the Fawley Bog Bodies will remain just that, a mystery.
And, you know, it's one of those things which I don't honestly think, you know, we're going to get an answer for unless somebody recovers the photographs.